Hello, good evening. Today's Bible study comes from Luke chapter 11, verses 37 through, 54. Holy smokes. When Jesus had finished speaking, a Pharisee invited him to eat with him, so he went in and reclined at the table. But the Pharisee was surprised when he noticed that Jesus did not first wash before the meal. Then the Lord said to him, "Now then, you Pharisees clean the outside of the cup and dish, but inside you are full of greed and wickedness. You foolish people. Did not the one who made the outside make the inside also? But now as for what is inside you, be generous to the poor, and everything will be cleaned for you. Woe to you, Pharisees, because you give God a tenth of your mint, rue and all other kinds of garden herbs, but you neglect justice and love of God. You should have practiced the latter without leaving the former undone. Woe to you, Pharisees, because you love the most important seats in the synagogues and respectful greetings in the marketplaces. Woe to you, because you are like unmarked graves, which people walk over without knowing it. One of the experts in the law answered him, Teacher, when you say these things, you insult us also. Jesus replied, And you experts in the law, woe to you, because you load people down with burdens they can hardly carry, and you yourselves will not lift one finger to help them. Woe to you, because you build tombs for the prophets, and it was your ancestors who killed them. So you testify that you approve of what your ancestors did. They killed the prophets, and you build their tombs. Because of this, God in his wisdom said, I will send them prophets and apostles, some of whom they will kill, and others they will persecute. Therefore, their generation will be held responsible for the blood of all the prophets that has been shed since the beginning of the world, from the blood of Abel to the blood of Zechariah, who was killed between the altar and the sanctuary. Yes, I tell you, this generation will be held responsible for it all. Woe to you, experts in the law, because you have taken away the key to knowledge. You yourselves have not entered, and you have hindered those who were entering. When Jesus went outside, the Pharisees and the teachers of the law began to oppose him fiercely and to besiege him with questions, waiting to catch him in something he might say. Well, as Jesus was speaking, we know a certain Pharisee asked him to come in and dine with them. So Jesus went to eat. Now the Pharisee was acting a fool or tripping because Jesus didn't wash his hands before dinner. So the Lord said to him, Now you Pharisees make the outside of the cup and dish clean. Meaning Jesus talking to him. You make your outside clean. It looks good. But part is full of greed and wickedness. The inward part is full of greed and wickedness. So your outside may look good, but your inside is terrible. And we just got done speaking about darkness and light. And the darkness is the darkness that is inside you, the evil that is inside you. So he's telling him your inside part is dirty. Your outside may look great. That's what we see. But your inside part, your inward, is full of greed and wickedness. Foolish ones, did not he who made the outside also make the inside? So didn't God make the outside and the inside? But rather give alms of such things as you have, then indeed all things are clean to you. So you're paying attention to this stuff. So all things are clean to you. When you wash your hands, you think things are clean, but you are still dirty on the inside. So he went and sat down to eat. And Jesus was getting some conflict with these people and opposition from the leaders, the Pharisees, but he didn't hate them. He didn't hate them at all. And Jesus accepted this invitation. He wouldn't eat with the Pharisee. He did not turn him away, nor did he say, No, I won't. It is possible that the Pharisee did, however, regret the invitation of Jesus after he got spoken to. He marveled that he had not first washed before dinner. Jesus was not unclean when he had not first washed before dinner. He did not follow the traditions of man or the crazy requirements of the ceremonial washing practiced by the pious Jews. This the Pharisee deemed as a great sin, or a sin as to commit fornication, or a sin as to commit murder, which still was not. Now, these ceremonial washings, they meant nothing. They were just a facade, a show. Because even though they were washing the outside, the inside was still filthy. The strict Jew would do this not only before the meal, but also between each course through the meal. And they were serious about it. And they felt that the food was unclean or not, how can I say, not edible to eat. They thought it was, excuse me, they thought it was bad if you didn't wash your hands between these. And this was a crazy tradition. So, if these religious leaders had been this concerned about doing this on the inside, Jesus wouldn't have had to school them. But they were just doing the appearance. Yeah, my hands are clean, but I'm dirty on the inside. Yes, I tell everybody I love you, but in my heart I hate you. So my outside sounds good and looks good, but it's not good. And Jesus told them, and Jesus knows our heart anyway, so it wasn't like this was a secret. So we needed to look to God on what He has done. Now you Pharisees make the outside of the cup and dish clean, but your inward part is full of greed and wickedness. As I said, appearance was good, inside was reality of who they were. They were foolish because they were worried about the outside and not the inside. So Jesus starts off with the woes. I call them the woes. But woe to you, Pharisees, for you tithe mint and rue and all manner of herbs, and pass by justice and the love of God. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. These you ought to have done without leaving the other undone, meaning you could do both. One is not more important than the other. I should say, one is not more important to be excluded. You should be doing both of them. What are you Pharisees, for you love the best seats in the synagogues and greetings in the marketplace, because I love to be known and seen. What are you scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you are like graves which are not seen, and the men who walk over them are not aware of them. Jesus spoke harshly. He was bothered with these dudes. Yet this was not personal irritation. This was a warning. Jesus was telling them out of a warning. This woe is a warning. And Jesus is talking to them in regards to the Old Testament. If you go back to Isaiah 5, 8 through 23, it says, woe to those who join house to house. They add field to field, till there is no place where they may dwell alone in the midst of the land. And it goes on, woe to those who rise early in the morning, that they may follow intoxicating drink. And this is a section about woes. And then you go to Habakkuk 2, 6 through 19, and you get, woe to him who covets evil gain for house. And it just keeps going with these woes. These are not good things. They are warnings. And Jesus is warning them about their foolish traditions and not taking into consideration God's traditions. Their problem is they're trying to do man's traditions over God's traditions. That doesn't work. Then he says, for you tithe mint and rue and all manner of herbs, and pass by justice and love of God. Hold up. You give me mint, rue, and all manner of herbs, but you won't give me justice, and you don't give the love of God. Their tithing was great. They did great tithing. But this was a hypocritical thing, because their tithing was to help them get over or soothe or comfort their true guilt of what they were doing. Or what I should say is what they weren't doing, because they neglected the justice and love of God. It is both possible to do both of these things, but they weren't doing that. They were distracted with the worldly over the spiritual. The Pharisees had the show. They had, if you were to say they had the show, they had the glitz and glamour. Um, they did things for show, but they weren't doing it for the Lord. These you ought to have done without leaving others undone. Jesus did not say that their tithing was wrong. As I said, he was saying you left the other things undone. Just because you tithe didn't mean you couldn't show justice and love. You love the best seats in the synagogue and in the marketplaces and all that. The best seats in the synagogue. This is so you can be seen and complimented and told how great you are and be pompous. Mm. And these people thought it was no good to walk right with God if others didn't know they walked right with God. They wanted people to see their status with the Lord, or how the Lord had been blessing them, to show off to people. So the scribes and the Pharisees were big time hypocrites. And then it tells you, for you are like graves which are not seen, and the men who walk over them are not aware of them. They gave the impression that they were spiritual, but they actually defiled the Lord and everyone that came into contact with them. And they were walking over a grave, ceremonially defiled a Jewish person. So that's why he said it to them. Everyone who touched a grave was ceremonially unclean. And I remember reading that a couple of weeks ago in Bible study, or I'm sorry, in Sunday school. And that's in the book of, shoot, give me a second. Numbers, the book of Numbers. I think it's like chapter 18, 19, 20, somewhere around there. Jesus rebuked the lawyers for their oppressive religious system. Then one of the lawyers answered and said to him, Teacher, by saying these things, you reproach us also. And he said, Whoa, here's another warning to you also, lawyers, for you load men with burdens hard to bear, and you yourselves do not touch the burdens with one of your fingers. Wow, that even plays true to the day. You can make a law and it not affect you if you're a lawyer. Well, Jesus is telling you, woe to that. You're doing things that you shouldn't do. One of the lawyers meant the man was an expert in the interpretation and application of law of Moses. He was great at what he did, but he was not great at following it. Or, as we would say today, that law doesn't apply to me. For you load men with burdens hard to bear, and you yourselves do not touch the burdens with one of your fingers. On the Sabbath it was forbidden to tie a knot, except a woman could tie a knot in her girdle. So if a bucket of water had to be raised from a well, you could not tie a rope to the bucket. But a woman could tie her girdle to the bucket and raise it from the well. So, once again, you see the pomposity of the Pharisees. And remember, Jesus is Lord over the Sabbath. And then, woe to you again, another warning. For you build the tombs of the prophets, and your fathers killed them. In fact, they bear witness to that you approve the deeds of your fathers, for they indeed killed them, and you build their tombs. Therefore the wisdom of God also said, I will send them prophets and apostles, and some of them they will kill and persecute, that the blood of the prophets which was shed from the foundation of the world may be required for this generation, from the blood of Abel to Zechariah, who perished between the altar. They professed to dead prophets that they didn't like, but they rejected living prophets. They professed to the dead prophets, telling them, "Oh yeah, we can deal with them. We like them. They were good for us." But the living prophets, they didn't like. They just, it was crazy to watch it. They gave the dead ones great respect, and the reason why they gave them great respect is because they were dead, because they couldn't give them any more laws or knowledge or wisdom that was given to them. But they rejected living prophets. In doing so, they showed that they really were the children of those who murdered the prophets. So, once again, they were just bad. They were approving the deeds of their fathers. We express the same thought. You know, we cannot say we're not going to listen to the ones living. We have to. We should. I will send them prophets and apostles, and some of them they will kill and persecute. Jesus prophesied that his people would be rejected, that we would suffer. He told us that. But Jesus said he was going to send them, and he knew that was going to happen. Then they go back to the Old Testament, and they go from the blood of Abel to the blood of Zechariah, where Jesus spoke here of all the martyrs in the Old Testament, from Abel, who was the first, to Zechariah was the last. If you look at 2 Chronicles in his book of, and the last book of the Hebrew Bible, which is Zechariah, Zechariah's story is found in chapter 2. Or I should say in 2 Chronicles chapter 24. Is that right? I have to look that up. It's either 2 Chronicles chapter 2 or chapter 24. I probably should go with 24, but who remembers all of it? But all of these are warnings where Jesus tells them, woe to you lawyers again. Jesus tells them about another thing they did. You did it yourselves. You are entering and you're hindered. It is bad for someone to not enter into heaven themselves, but it is far worse to hinder another person from entering in. Woe to you who makes a child stumble. And as he said these things to them, the scribes and Pharisees began to assail him vehemently and to cross-examine him. They questioning Jesus about many things, lying in wait to catch him, as usual, and seeking to catch him in something. They thought that they were going to accuse Jesus, and Jesus hadn't been caught, and no man had outsmarted Jesus, because Jesus knew their crooked, shady hearts, and they were going to continue to be that way. But Jesus warned them, as we should do, and plant the seed and go about our business. And that's what the Lord constantly did. He was teaching and loving and showing compassion. Even in stern teaching, he was loving us. Amen.